morning. Thank you for joining us during our Lab Voices session. My name is Jürgen Rieb. I'm the Managing Director for the Central US region, and I'm truly excited to be here with you today. We have the honor to welcome Maki Matona from Tammany Health System in Louisiana, as we are going to speak how lab innovation actually creates tangible impacts on lab operation, staff, but most importantly, patient care. So during our 30 minutes, we are going to discuss how Tammany and Maki actually shaped their decision to partner with Abbott, how that transformation actually played out in real life, and what tangible benefits were created for the lab and the patient. We are also going to look into the future and talk about how digital health solution actually shapes Tammany's health system strategy and what else is in there for the partnership between Abbott and Tammany. So with that having said, Maki, let's dive in. I have to provide some disclaimers. So first, the support for this program is provided by Abbott. The speakers are presenting at the request of Abbott, and the views and opinions expressed in this presentation are those of the speaker. Any results, findings, or conclusions are reflective of the speaker's experience and should not be considered a product claim. Individual results may vary, and this presentation is not intended to represent or guarantee that the laboratory will achieve the same or similar results. So with that out of the way, Maki, could you introduce yourself and introduce Tammany Health System?
Yeah, sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mackie. I am the lab director for Tammany Health System. I've been with the system for about 2 years. So of course, when I started with the system, I looked at our laboratory contracts, and the first thing I noticed was the chemistry contract was due for renewal. And so we started into the selection process, looking into new vendors. But just a little bit more about our health system. We are a community health system on the North Shore, close to New Orleans, right across the causeway. We are about 281 beds for the hospital itself. And then as you can see, we have several outreach clinics, off-standing EDs, primary clinics, specialty care. So we have quite a bit of outreach as well.
Thank you for that introduction. Very nice healthcare system. It was always a pleasure to visit you and also seeing the continued growth, your experience. So could you talk a little bit what might have been the key decision factors to actually partner with Abbott?
Right. So as you saw, the health system opened in 1954, and then we'd just grown rapidly. So at the start of opening the health system, we have had actually ortho diagnostics, the Vitros chemistry analyzers since opening. And so as I took the position, I really came into a very standard. They've had the systems for a while, but we really wanted to look at what was out there, what was new. Healthcare changes every day, and so does the organization's goals and values. And so as healthcare changes, we wanted to keep up with that change. And so we looked at all 5 major vendors for chemistry analyzers and really zoned in on Abbott. And I'll go through a couple of those key points of why we chose to go through with Abbott. So for the instrumentation, I think what stood out the most was just really the ease of use to the med techs. So there's kind of 2 pieces. You want to present to the C-suite on the administrative points as well, cost, size, scalability, but then also you have presenting to your staff the best choice and the value of the partnership to them. And so as we looked at the instruments, just the ease of use, the technologists being able to easily train on these instruments, the size, then the ease of use goes through maintenance, QC, the digital health solutions, the middleware, the IT solutions, and so being able to easily train them and have everyone being able to operate the instrument effectively was a big deal to us because we are a smaller health system. We have a smaller amount of staff. And so we wanted everyone to be able to calibrate, run QC, and do it comfortably. And the Alinities really allow you to do that. The maintenance is very little. and the help guide in the instrument is very thorough. So if there was a night shifter that had a question, they could open up the guide. There's quick guides, videos. I just felt that it was the best solution for the staff themselves. And then from the administrative point of view, the size and scalability of the instruments. Because we were a smaller health system, we really didn't have a large footprint in the laboratory. And so we wanted a system where we could get the highest throughput because we were growing every day. We were opening new clinics, adding more outreach. So we needed to keep up with that, but in a small space. And so the Alinity solutions really allowed us to do that. And then that led us also into the GLP track decision. And that really, the scalability of the track also allowed us to continue advancing our growth with that outreach, but not at the cost of our ED turnaround times and our inpatient turnaround times. So with the technology of the GLP track, we could add the throughput, the instruments could handle it, the line could handle it, but the line also had a technology where the stats could literally pass up the routines on the track because of the car technology. And so I think with that, we're able to allow the system to continue to grow, but not at the cost of our inpatient and emergent operations.
That's very interesting. What I'm hearing is you had to take into consideration many stakeholders, from the medtechs that actually operate the instruments to the administration, as well as stakeholders like the department that really truly care about patient care and, for example, speed of results. How would you say did you prioritize those different stakeholders, and what was for you personally perhaps the most important differentiator?
Yeah, I think the different stakeholders, one was obviously the administration suite. We wanted to really reduce the cost of construction. I think every healthcare system out there is mindful of cost, and so we didn't want to come in and really have to redo the entire lab to be able to move forward with automation. I don't know if I mentioned that at the start, but we did not have automation before. And so we had to fit the Alinities and the GLP solution in the same space where we only had 2 Vitros analyzers. And so to be able to do that and present to administration that, look, we're going to get all of these great value adds and the opportunity to continue to grow in the same space we are now. And they were a little hesitant. They were like, "Are you sure?" And I said, yes. The scalability is great. It's a modular system. And then as far as the ED, we really looked at turnaround times and the car technology on being able to prioritize those stats. And so that it was a big help to them as well.
Interesting. Maximizing productivity in the same space and actually having a scalable solution that then adjusts to your growing needs. Thank you for that. So you decided to move forward with Abbott, and can you describe the transition process and how you met major milestones and potential challenges you faced in the process? I mean, let's be honest, change of vendor is a really scary thing for many lab systems.
Right. And so we mentioned the ED stakeholders, and so I'll start with them because we really we wanted to plan in advance, and so we had test menus that we were considering bringing on high-sense troponin. So as soon as we decided to go with Abbott, we really started having those conversations with all of those different stakeholders, and one of the obstacles we knew was that we were not live with high-sense troponin yet. And so because of that, Abbott actually came in, we planned way in advance and rolled out high-sense troponin to where the physicians were comfortable. They brought in educators, and we had a week of on-site education for all of the physicians. And so we were able to move forward with the implementation. As you can see here, so we did install the Alinities this last December. The install went very well. I think the key points there are just communication, making sure that your staff know the plan and making sure your health system knows the plan, as well as the community. What are we bringing on? Why are we doing it? And tying it back to that patient care perspective on why we're advancing to this new technology. Because like, as we said, St. Tammany was a very in their old ways health system as far as the lab, being with ortho diagnostics for so long. And so this was a big change for the staff. So everyone was a little uneasy. As you can see, it's a very lengthy on-hands project, but also I felt that after the Alinities were installed, as you can see in this video, The GLP systems team came in and they installed the entire track as we were still operating on the Alinity. So there was really no disruption in the day-to-day workflow of the lab. They really came in and built it like Legos around our Alinities. So there wasn't a lot of disruption. We made sure all of the training was on the front end, and I think that's why it went so well, just that communication and making sure everyone was prepared. And then on the day of go live, we called all of the stakeholders and said, this is what we're doing. We just want to give you a reminder for the staff that were there that day. And everybody was on board and able to let us know that it went really well and there was really no disruptions on the transition journey.
That's great feedback. Thank you very much for that. So you could actually come out of a very scary process where everybody felt uneasy, very successful with no disruption to your day-to-day work. And I think great credit has to be given to you and your team by choosing this collaborative process involving all key stakeholders like the physicians and the emergency departments to align, for example, protocols for new assays you were launching for improved patient care, like high-sensitive troponin. Would you point out one major challenge during the implementation, and how did you overcome those?
Yeah, I think one really good value that we were looking for with the GLP was our accessioning department was actually scanning in every specimen that came to the lab. And so with the automation line, we were able to receive those specimens on the line. And so as always, you have your bumps with your IT programming and making sure getting all those kinks are worked out before you go live. And so we noticed that if the ED or the nurses weren't labeling the specimens correctly, it was having a difficult time receiving those samples on the line. And so we went back, did some training, and we allocated a drawer on the line for those errors. So that way they weren't just stuck in the input module and that a flag goes to the techs and they're able to go grab that sample, fix it straight away. And we've actually, through that initiative, brought our labeling compliance from the ED from about 13% all the way up to 87% now. So it was a huge initiative with the help of Abbott and really having them come tour the lab, see the automation line and why it was important to complete the labeling process correctly so the label was just right and everything could scan appropriately. And it made a massive impact on our healthcare system.
Amazing. Again, a very collaborative approach that actually brings not only new technology, but actually process improvement across the whole system. So now today, you have a beautiful end-to-end lab solution, live, working. What are the tangible benefits for your lab operation, the staff, and obviously, ultimately, the patient care?
Yeah, I think between the Alinities and the GLP track, we really have noticed a major difference in the laboratory. So before, we were actually having to hold our outreach samples because we grew so quickly as a health system that we would get the outreach samples and almost have to put them on the instruments in batches because it would bog down the instrument, everything would go really slowly. And so when we went live with the Alinities at first, we noticed right away we were not having to batch anything. We could put the entire volume on the Alinities with no slowness, no issues as far as keeping up with the throughput at any of our peak hours. And so that went really well with the instruments. And so that was great for just our outreach providers. Because before we were holding specimens and still getting them out in, a 24-hour period, but it was around 8 p.m. I would say my night shift was coming in and they're still kind of processing the outpatient samples. Now with the Alinities, we're finishing up our outreach anywhere from 4 to 5 o'clock. And so it made a massive difference in our outreach turnaround time. And with the techs, it's, we have more staff in that middle point of the day, so it's easier to get through that workload. And also we're getting those results out to the clinics before they close. So I think that's the important piece is they can see that result. Even if they have a patient drawn around 3 p.m., we're still able to get that answer to them before they leave. And so if they need to call that patient in and say, hey, you might need to go to the ED or let's set up a follow-up appointment for tomorrow, they have those results much quicker than they do now, than they did before.
And I think that's an important thing to remind ourselves, right? It's not TAT for the sake of TAT. It's actually turnaround time so a patient can get the right treatment, diagnosis, or care that is required. Now, let's talk a little bit about the digital health solutions. And How are you addressing with such an important change and incorporate digital health solutions in order to be ready for the future?
Yeah, sure. I actually double clicked on a slide, if you don't mind to go back one. So it'll show that this is a graph of actually before we went live with our digital health solutions and when we were looking to go live with the Linides and the GLP track, we looked at our courier schedule because we did have a massive amount of outreach. And so the GLP systems team actually took our data from our LIS file and were able to see these peaks and valleys in our outreach drop-offs. And so from that data set, we were able to go and present that to our administration C-suite and show them that we really did need additional couriers or to outreach our courier services, outsource. And so on the right, you can see once we did that, it was much more stable throughout the day. And our techs noticed it was great receiving in the turnaround times. It actually helped because we weren't getting these big batches that it would take 1 to 2 hours to process. It was in smaller batches throughout the day, so it really helped there. And that was kind of our first look at a digital health solution from Abbott's perspective, bringing that and showing us what it could do. And so then we took the project and really started installing with IMS, the inventory management solution. So that's what you see here. So what IMS did for us at St. Tammany, we were completely manual as far as inventory. So she had an Excel spreadsheet, would check off, her par levels, what she needed to order. We would give that spreadsheet to our secretary, who then put it into the system where it came to me for approval. The order would go to purchasing. They would place the order with the vendor. Then it would come in, and Megan, who you see on the screen, would have to go through the inventory one by one, and then we'd have to send that paper back to purchasing so they could know what we received in. Yeah. So now all of that is completely automated with inventory management systems. So Megan places the order in IMS. It comes straight to me. I approve it. It gets ordered directly to the vendor. And when all of the products come in, you can see the handheld, and it's RFID technology to where you just wave it across your inventory, and it receives everything right in. And so we're completely live with all of the interfaces and the capabilities of this product, and it has reduced our hours just on inventory solution alone. And it also can set the par levels for your facility, so it actually sends my chemistry leads alerts like, hey, you've used the last box, or you have 3 boxes left, you should go ahead and order. So it suggests what you should order, and it makes it very efficient and less manpower to do the process and all.
What I'm hearing is obviously you use the digital health solution to actually analyze and improve your current processes, automate a lot of manual steps so your staff can actually focus on what matters most, which is the patient, right? Now, what's next in digital health solution? How do you, for example, look into the future, and what else do you want to do with all the data?
We're really close to going live with AIP, which is a data analytics platform. And so, of course, when you're pitching this to your administrators, you're going to want all of the packages, all of the things. And so you really have to figure out a way to tie that back to the patient and show why it's truly valuable. So I think with the data analytics platform, we're really looking at not just turnaround times and the general metrics, but also physician utilization. I don't know for all of you, but for our health system, data is very hard to come by. And so if we think a physician is overutilizing a test, we really don't have the numbers to show and provide that information to get them educated on the testing. And so what AIP allows us to do, my first initiative will be to just look at what each physician is ordering that day. They may be ordering a CBC with a differential every 2 hours, and really they just need to order one CBC with a diff, and then the rest need to be H&Hs. So I think it just gives us that capability to look at what the physicians are ordering and provide some backup so that we can provide them that education, and then that ties back to the patient on their insurance is not going to cover 2 of the same test every day. I mean, that ends up being a cost to the patient when it's not really clinically significant to keep doing that at that interval. And so we're really looking to maximize that and make sure we're ordering efficiently with all of our physicians, so that way it goes back to the patient. They're getting what they need, but not more than what they need.
Interesting. Yeah, it's all about actionable insights that you have on the click of your fingertip to drive better patient care, And again, I would like to point out that collaborative approach you have with the physicians and all other stakeholders to make this a reality. So um, in the last 10 minutes, I would like to address a little bit your overall experience. I would say, what has been the most important improvement in your lab operation, and can you talk a little bit perhaps about the satisfaction of lab staff with the new technology?
Yeah, I think our overall experience is that the transition went very well. I think all of our staff, our administrators are all very happy with the decision and the partnership with Abbott. Obviously, the turnaround time, the throughput that we were not getting before has really drastically changed for our patients and our community. But just the idea and the innovation that I think we both bring to the partnership of, yes, we're a smaller community health system, but now that we have the instrumentation, the automation, we're so stable now that it's what's next. You know, we can truly look back and to start to having our techs look into more research. What are changing guidelines? What do we want to bring in-house rather than outsource? And so it really just allows you to let the instrumentation and the equipment take care of the day-to-day. The equipment is so smart, the technology is there to allow your med techs to step away from the bench more frequently than they did before. And so I think it just gives them that opportunity to ask the question, what's next, and research and get back to why they became a med tech in the first place, which we usually all like to read, like to research, like to do what's best for the patient and see what the next best thing is. And so I think it's going to give us a great experience to have some time to do that and get back to the basics.
I actually admire your constant drive for continuous improvement and looking what's next. So how do you envision the partnership with Abbott in the future, Mackie?
Yeah, I think we have a very bright future together. Like I said, overall, the experience, I actually had a chemistry tech who would not let me schedule her in the chemistry department when we had the ortho instrumentation. And now she works in chemistry every day. She absolutely loves it. And so I think the future is just getting people excited about the technology that is coming out. We did an open house for the GLP track, and the physicians, the ED, all of the nurses, we had them all come in and see the technology, and they were all very excited. They had never seen anything like that before. And so I think it's just looking to the future on getting more people excited and knowledgeable about laboratory medicine. And like you said, involving those other stakeholders to see what you can do as a health system to really maximize efficiency and patient care with the right partner.
I like what you did there with the open house, actually showcasing the relevance of the lab, right? And showcasing how future ready you are and prepared to actually impact patient care, but also contributing to the healthcare system's objectives of optimizing constantly resources and working more efficiently. Is there something specific you have in mind that might be in the short term for you as an interesting project?
Yeah, I think there's a product indexer of yours that, of course, is a specimen management system for all of your outreach. So my health system is growing very rapidly. We've opened 1 to 2 clinics just since I've been with St. Tammany in the past 2 years. And so to help with that growth, I think I will be looking to Indexer in the future to manage just that outreach volume, getting it to the health system, because everything outside comes to our laboratory in the hospital. So having an efficient system like that, I think will make improvements in the future. And then also I attended the presentation yesterday for Univance. And so I'm very excited to bring that back to our health system and kind of try and maybe make a little competition between the stakeholders to say, okay, who wants to be on this project? What are your ideas? This is what we're going to do. And so really to drive innovation, like I said, now that we're stable and have a solution that fits our needs, we can really look forward to the future and accomplish that.
Hey, I love the competitive spirit. I hope we will celebrate you as a top global winner for the Univance Award next year, Mackie. And, you know, with your hard work and your collaborative approach, I have not a single doubt that you're soon going to be on the list of the Univance winners.
Hope so. We'll see.
Again, thank you very much for your partnership and driving truly lab innovation for diagnostic excellence. I would use the last 5 minutes and offer the audience if there are any questions you would like to ask to Mackie.
Do you feel like it was difficult looking past any biases that you had from previous experience at previous facilities with maybe different vendors, or even previous relationships with vendors, or just experience with different manufacturers?
Yeah, definitely. I actually, so before I came to St. Tammany, I had just went through the vendor selection and actually went with a different vendor. And so coming into St. Tammany, I did have a little bit of a bias, but I think what's important is that each health system is so different. And the fact that we went with Abbott just showcased that they came in and wanted to see what St. Tammany's goals were and how they could best align with those goals. And so really getting down to what the health system was trying to achieve and not, trying to fit the GLP has several different modules. It wasn't let's fit everything that we can. It's let's fit what aligns with your goals and what you'd like to do as a lab. And so I think that was a big piece of the discussion and why we chose to partner with Abbott in the long run.
Very interesting point, right? Understanding truly the needs of the health system and then having a tailored solution to help the system to actually achieve its goal. So, yeah, thank you for that question. Are there any other questions from the audience?
Um, are there specific success metrics that your leadership is looking at for future investment in the lab that you're tracking now?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I think we're looking at metrics as far as physician utilization and throughput. Where our health system, our community is growing rapidly on the North Shore in Louisiana. We're right across the lake from New Orleans, and so we have a lot of people that live on the North Shore that commute to New Orleans. And so one of our health system's goals is just to keep up with that change and keep up with the growth of community. And so I think we'll be tracking our throughput, watching to see if maybe we need to add a module, which will be easy because it, like I said, plugging in Legos. So as we continue to grow, I'm sure our system will continue to grow as well. And I think the administration will see value in that and want to continue to grow.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions from the audience? With that said, thank you very much again for your partnership. I hope the headphones didn't mess up our hair, Mackie.
No, not at all. Looks great.
Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you all so much.